All right, I'd like to welcome you all to our transition presentation, Transition Are You Ready? It's done both by the IWK and Halifax Regional School Board. So for the first section, we have Mariette McDonald is here. I'm pleased to introduce her. She's back joining us again. Mariette has a daughter, Nicole, that I had the pleasure of working with over the past several years. And so Mariette is here to give information on her experience and her and Nicole's experience transitioning from high school to the adult world. So we're very happy that Mariette has agreed to do this for us and is a wealth of information. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Kendra. Hi, my name is Mariette, like Kendra said, and Kendra was kind enough to give me a little cheat sheet of questions to help me organize, what she wanted me to talk about. So the first time I did this, I did follow her plan, but I didn't have it very organized. So hopefully this time it's a little bit better organized. One of the things that Kendra asked, the first question was, what things did you, your son or daughter, and family consider as you moved towards transition from high school? Thank you. One of the things that my husband and I both did when our daughter was born is we had made a commitment from birth that we would do everything in our power to make sure that she was the best person that she could possibly be. So we've just kept that up, but that was really since birth. And our top consideration was, and still is, independence and quality of life, and her being able to provide some meaningful contribution to society. We did struggle in school, all throughout school, with the right type of support, and we had planned a fourth year in high school, and that started to fall apart a little bit at the first of our third year, and we decided that we would try to find out other options. So all along, while Nicole was going through her school year, I was always trying to feel out other options. How did we help Nicole identify her goals? And what goals did we set for Nicole? Well, first was independence and quality of life, but Nicole, as far as the future, she's pretty knowledgeable about what she would like to do, and she'd like to be an advocate for the disabled in her future career in some format. Those were her major goals. Life skills goals are also really important, so we had to sit down and think about what kinds of goals she would have, not just academically, but just general life skill goals in general. So one of her major issues was choking, so we had to work with IWK Psychology and work on the choking issue, because if she was going to live an independent life, we had to nail the choking thing. So that's just an example. Another one is being home alone. She was really afraid. She had a lot of anxieties being home alone, so we worked very baby steps. These kinds of transition plans don't just happen overnight. We created a plan and we developed baby steps so that we could help Nicole learn those skills. Nicole has a natural keen sense of justice, and she wants to be an advocate for the disabled when she grows up. And she started pretty early. I hear in grade 2 she did a pretty phenomenal speech. I think it was about discrimination on Martin Luther King Day. So she already knew that that was what she kind of wanted to do, and we helped her channel her energy and our energy and her ideas into how she could make that happen. So we're still working on that. It's not a one-day decision. It's something that's ongoing. And one of the things that we also did was we created our own opportunities. So when in 2010, there was no summer employment in our community for youth with disabilities. We created an employment training skills program. We sold ice cream up at the rink. We had a grant for a job coach, and we had 5 kids go through. So it was a pretty big deal. It was a small project, but it was greatly successful. And it gets Nicole out there, and it gets some awareness in our community to know that people with disabilities want to be included and want to have employment and want to have a meaningful life. How did we get yourself and your child ready to make the transition from high school? I would feel bad if I didn't say that I quit my job. To let you know that the amount of work that I do, I did it because I was able to leave my job. I left my career first in 1994, and that was to take care of the family. And this wasn't a plan. I wasn't born an advocate for the disabled. I didn't really know what I was doing, and we certainly made our mistakes along the way. But I was able to leave my job, and I was able to dedicate a lot of my time to transitioning Nicole. Then in 2009, I think it was, I left. I had another little job, and I was able to leave that job as well. I'll just wait. Sorry about that. So I was able to leave that job because Nicole was getting into high school and there was a lot of transition planning that had to take place. It wasn't just academics and education or employment, although those are always our big ones, but it was everything. It was finance, because you have to find money to do things. It was learning about the Registered Disability Savings Plan, something I read about in a magazine while I was waiting at the hospital for an appointment in its infancy. So I learned about it very, very early. I latched onto it. I went to my financial advisor and I said, what is this? And they didn't know, but that was born, and we were able to carry that through. The other thing we did was something called a Henson Trust. So that's the legal and financial aspect, because you might have a guardianship issue, you might have a power of attorney issue. Those things also have to be taken care of as your child gets older. The health and the medical, we didn't have a great issue with transitioning out of the IWK. It was fairly smooth. It was mostly the same doctors that we had at the QE2. We've just been there since May, so we're fairly new in the adult healthcare system, but we don't really have any issues there. Recreation is another area of transition that families need to think about. So what is your child interested in? What are the options available? What can take place for your child? And transportation is also another area that we didn't have any issues with, but that's another thing that that some families have to consider when they're trying to transition their child. So with this program that Nicole is in now, she's at a new program called Access Acadia, which is an inclusive post-secondary education program for students with disabilities. We had to find a power wheelchair, so that's in progress. And while I'm gone, we have to find transportation for her. So those are the kinds of things that you have to line up. And the big things are still for us education and employment, and there's also a huge housing issue. So I am thinking ahead of where Nicole will want to be living by the age of maybe 25. I know she won't be living with me forever. So we always started planning for transition 2 or 3 years in advance of where we were. We were putting out fires where we were, but we also started thinking about now that we're here, where do we want to be and what do I need to do to get there? And that's particularly important for the whole finance picture and the education picture. I started to investigate options once Nicole was done high school, and when she was in high school 2 short years ago, there really weren't a lot of options, but we started to find out what they were. And it was only a sequence of events that we were really, really fortunate to go through that led us to the Acadia option, because nobody was going to tell us about that option. That was just something that fell into our lap, and I went, whoa, you know, what's this? And did my investigation and my homework. Sometimes you have to scramble. We were planning on staying an extra year in high school, like I said, and then when we decided to leave early, the things that I had thought of before, I had to really scramble and see if I could make those things happen. And because a lot of the things usually have a wait list, or there's limited spaces. So if you want to go to ACE, or you want to go to a training center, or any program, or whether it's educational or vocational, you have to put your name on a wait list. So you really want to find out what those things are, and you want to find out what those things are early. So that means you kind of know where you want to go. And if you're not sure where you want to go, you can always put your name on 2 or 3 wait lists, and take some off later on. So you want to keep all your options open. What do you suggest other families do to get themselves ready for transition? I would really strongly suggest that you identify what your needs are, what your problems are. You can't solve a problem if you don't know what your problem is. We could only work on a few things at a time, so it's a really long period. The transition period is long because you can only work on a few things at a time. At least we can only work on a few things at a time. So when we were working on being home alone or the choking issue, well, we couldn't add a whole bunch of other things while we were doing that. You have to really focus your energies on what you want to solve and what you want to achieve. I started looking for all kinds of options and resources. I'm always looking for resources. I never stop looking for options and resources. I never turn that part of my brain off. You're not going to find them all in one place. You have to start searching, and you have to start talking to people. You have to start meeting up with organizations. So when you go to a presentation or a conference or a symposium or any kind of a talk, you want to find out who's there. You want to get all kinds of business cards and brochures, and you want to put them in a bucket. You want to put them in a box. You may never look at them again, but you want to put them in a bucket, and you want to have that pile of paper that when somebody says, oh, have you heard anything about independent living Nova Scotia, you go, oh, gee, I might have something about that in my bucket. Maybe they can help me with my problem. So you really have to know what your problem is, and you really have to know what all these organizations do. I don't have a clue what all the organizations do, but I know they're out there, and I know that if I want to find something, I probably know somebody who knows something about an organization who can help me. Apply early is one of the other things that you want to do, and I put find the money. Finding the money for some of these things is a really tough go. So when I quit my job, obviously our income was greatly diminished. So I worked very hard at finding ways to fund things. And there is money out there. You just have to figure it out. One thing that we did at one time, for example, is when Nicole was little, we wanted to get her on the ice to go skating. And I designed a skating frame for her, but we didn't have any way to build it. So we had a newspaper article published by the HM Recreation Department, and we found somebody to provide materials and a welder who could make her skating frame for her. So there are ways of getting things done. You just have to be a little bit creative. I don't have that as one of my tips, but I'm going to add that. Be creative. What barriers did you discover going along the way, and how did you and your child tackle these barriers? There's a lot of red tape. Unfortunately, there's a lot of applying, there's a lot of eligibility criteria, there's a lot of assessments, like there's a lot of red tape. You have to go through the red tape. There's a lot of resistance to change. People don't want to change their policies to accommodate one-ofs. They want to go by their rules. Policy is not legislation, by the way. Policy is policy. So I'm not really good at reading acts and legislation, but it's on my list of things to do, I guess. But sometimes you have to really know what your rights are. Sometimes people are not open to suggestion, and I'm not just talking about, there's all kinds of, whether it's Department of Community Services, Department of Education, there's all kinds of things that might not be open to suggestion. I think there's a real failure to understand people who live with disabilities. I think they want to understand, they want to help, but I think that there's a real failure there to understand and be empathetic. A lot of government departments don't work together. So I'm seeing the school board and the IWK together, working together today, but a lot of times they don't work together. So a lot of times if you are eligible to qualify for one program, you automatically disqualify yourself for another program. So those are the kinds of things you really have to learn and, you know, decide what you want to do. The things that we did to tackle those things would be persistence. And I would strongly recommend you do your homework. If there's anything that you can read, anybody that you can talk to, the little bit of time that you might spend reading a document that might seem tedious, you might save yourself hours later on. It might take you 5 minutes with a cup of coffee to read a few pages, but it would take you hours to deal with it on another level. So I think if you spend a little bit of time doing your homework, and you know, yeah, I do read the policies. They're really not that hard to read. The acts are a different story, but policies are not that hard to read. I do my homework. We wrote a lot of letters. We did a lot of letter writing, and we used a lot of diplomacy in our letter writing. We didn't do a lot of griping in our letter writing. We tried to identify the problems, and we tried to be solutions focused as well. We made a lot of phone calls, and I really used my network. So my network are the opportunities and resources that we discovered that were useful. People. I put all kinds of people in my back pocket all the time, whether I meet them at presentations, appointments, symposiums, information sessions, conferences. I take one of everything, and I try to meet people, and I try to find connections with people. So they might be from the hospital, the IWK, they might be doctors. Disabled Persons Commission is a great link to have if you have a problem that needs to be tackled by them. All of the ACLs in the province are great connections to have. They have a lot of knowledge, and if you don't know where to go find something, they probably know where to go find something. they probably know where you need to go to find help or who you need to talk to. The Department of Education, we have a great connection there now that we're transitioning out in post-secondary disability services. Department of Community Services, you want to have a really good connection with those government departments. One of the things that we were able to do was become connected with the Easter Seals organization of Nova Scotia, and they were originally called the Abilities Foundation of Nova Scotia. They've rebranded and they're called Easter Seals. And Nicole was fortunate enough in grade 6 to become the Easter Seals Ambassador of Nova Scotia for 5 years. And that connection allowed us to meet all kinds of people, have experiences that we would not otherwise have experienced. And it gave her the opportunity to see how being an advocate for the disabled might fit, like how her career goals would be able to fit with her skill levels and her academic achievements and all of those things. So that was an opportunity that we didn't say no to, and that's been a really great payback. So one of the tips that I have further down is never say no to an opportunity. So if you have an opportunity to try something or meet somebody or talk to somebody or experience something, if it's at all within your power, we really try hard to accommodate other people in their requests, and it's given us other opportunities to experience things ourselves, and it gives Nicole a chance to she's really out there. I think she's on the truck, and she's on the trailer, and she's in the newspaper, and she's on the wall, and almost everybody knows Nicole, and I think it's really, really important for her to get that visibility out there because of what she wants to do. So all of those little things, they're just baby steps, but baby steps are really important. None of these things happen overnight for us. We've been working on this for a very, very, very long time. It's not easy. There are a lot of tears. There's a lot of reward, but it's a long process. My involvement with a number of organizations has allowed me to grow my network, and I never lose that opportunity to grow my network. I also think it's really important to conduct yourself and the content of your letters in a business. And these people you're dealing with are business people, so you want to be able to conduct yourself the way that they'd be able to relate to you and understand what your problem is. What did we worry about as Nicole was moving towards transition? Treated unfairly, the hoops that we would have to jump, the amount of work that it was to do things and justify things, and the fact that nothing was easy. These worries were absolutely justified, and they still continue to be absolutely justified. This red tape is still there, and this is what I do. Looking back, is there anything that we would have done differently? I think advocacy for your child is a growth process. We made mistakes. Could I have done something differently then? If I knew more then, yeah, I probably could have. But it's a growth process, and you're going to make mistakes. But you're going to learn from those mistakes. And do you want me to start that question over? Okay, so yeah. You have to learn how to grow out of being intimidated, I think, too. So like doctors might intimidate you in the beginning, but if you have a child with a medical condition, I don't think it takes very long for you to grow out of that. So you have to take that skill and apply it to other people as well. So you want to learn about an employment opportunity or an educational opportunity, you have to be not afraid to ask questions, and you have to be able to have that conversation with people. I was lucky when Nicole was little, until she started school. We had an amazing early intervention worker. I still get choked up when I think about her. She was, her name was Dawn McLean, and she was absolutely amazing. And she probably was the one person in the early years that was able to kind of steer me down that right path. She's the one who was able to say, oh, well, there's a place you can go, you could try this, and you have to be careful about this or this. And she was very, very knowledgeable, and I really appreciate that more now, so many years later, to know, I think, how much knowledge that woman had, and the way she sort of doled it out in little doses, just enough, because you can't take it all at once, especially if you have a little one and you're just getting started. There's an awful lot of information out there that you have to learn. So she was really, really, really great, and I think I would have been totally lost without her. But if you have an amazing person like that in your life, you want to really use that to your advantage. We had all kinds of great points of celebration. Kendra asked me to talk a little bit about those. There were certainly a lot of down times and a lot of sad times. Everybody has their challenges and their struggles, but we really had a lot of great celebration times. One of the biggest things was, like I said, when Nicole was in grade 2, and somebody from the school, I can't say who, called me and said, you should really be proud of your daughter today because she was able to stand up in front of her class and talk about discrimination. Now, I realize in February it's Martin Luther King Day and it's a racial discrimination day, but in grade 2 they talk about discrimination more generally, and she was able to, I think, say quite an earful. I wish I had been there. Sorry, babes. Camp Nish was another great and wonderful celebration for us. So being away from home, Nicole was not able to do that. We were not successful in even sleepovers with friends. So that was something that she wanted to do, and it was a really scary proposition for all of us. I think we did that in, do you remember what year, Nicole? 2005? 2005. So it's getting up there. But then she loved it, and she was able to learn how to be away from home, and this is where she was able to meet the Easter Seals folks and get the opportunity to be the ambassador. So things kind of roll out of other things. So that's where opportunity comes in. Like, I think if you have opportunities to try things, you never know what else will fall out of something like that. In grade 6 or 5, maybe, Nicole was mad one day, and she wrote a letter of hope. It was an assignment in school, and she was again able to say quite an earful. But we were able to take that message and turn it around, and she created an I Believe speech that she has since delivered on a number of occasions. And in fact, it was her exam for her grade 11 drama class on stage in front of a whole bunch of people. So we've used that I Believe speech a number of times. And again, this all plays into her common major goal of being an advocate for the disabled, because I would take these things and see opportunities for her to be able to demonstrate her advocacy skills. In high school, for 3 years in a row, she did an Access Awareness Day because she wanted everybody to be aware of what people with disabilities live with who are in a wheelchair. So she got all the Easter Seals wheelchairs in, and she had all the Pal and Jim kids go through an obstacle course and maybe a basketball game, and at lunchtime anybody in the school could sign up to sit in a wheelchair and try that out. So that wasn't really to create sympathy for herself, it was to create awareness about what it's maybe like to live in a wheelchair. She just wanted a little bit of understanding. So she did that, and she did that for 3 years in a row. Because of that, she got a lot of award nominations for different things. So again, it's opportunity. She wanted to do something. Everybody says, oh my God, how are you going to do that? That's impossible. No, it's not impossible. Think the size that you can achieve a goal, and I think you'll be amazed at what you can do. The one most important tip, now Kendra, she says, what's the one most important tip you can leave with other parents? I have 7, but the one most important tip, the first one I'm going to tell you is networking, is your people contacts. You really want to remember who they all are, and you want to make friends, and you want to keep these people in your back pocket, and you really, really want to be able to use them when you need to. And you'll become somebody who will be able to give somebody else some information someday. And the second thing, I need two top points, is to keep track. Keep track of everything you do. Notes, phone numbers, times, dates, people, copies of letters, phone calls. Try to keep track. It's a hard thing to do. I'm probably pretty good at it, but I don't keep track of everything. And when Nicole was transitioning in Acadia this year, the notebook of all the million tasks I had to do was so thick. I should have kept track because somebody's going to want those notes. But when I took care of something, I had to tear it out of the notebook and throw it away because there was just too many things for me to deal with. But I did. You want to keep track what day you talked to somebody, who it was, what they said. I really think you need to keep track. The ones that are maybe not so most important are to stay focused on what you want to achieve and never say no to opportunity. I believe diplomacy and professionalism will get you a whole lot further than just complaining about something. I think you need to be persistent. I don't think you need to let it go. If it's something you really want, you want information about, you find out how something's going to work, you need to be persistent. And I think you need to stay solutions focused, not just focused, but I think you should stay solutions focused. I think you need to know what you see as a solution or what the options might be, and it might not just be one thing. Maybe you need to compromise with somebody on something, but a compromise is not a bad solution either. So I think you need to stay solutions focused. I think that my one encouraging statement is that it'll happen. if you can stay calm and stay focused, I think when one major thing is resolved, it just takes a huge weight off to try to solve some of the other things that you're going to have to solve. I think when you get one thing done, you're going to have more energy to work on some of the other things that you have to work on too. So I think if you can take one thing off your plate, no matter what it is, they'll give you more time and more energy to focus on some of the other things. So in closing, I'd like to close with my favorite quote that I just discovered recently from Dr. Seuss. Right, Nicole? Think left and think right and think low and think high. Oh, the thinks you can think up if only you try.